This is the KTM Summer Grill. Andrew Van Leeuwen, Dan Herrero and Greg Russ with you for this edition, and we are delighted to be joined by a man who arguably in 2023 had one of the biggest learning curves in supercars, CEO of Dick Johnson Racing. David Noble, welcome.
Thanks, Rusty. Great to be here.
It probably is a nice way of saying it. Man, there was a lot to take in 2023 for you, wasn't there?
Fair to say I'm still learning as we go to air. So, yeah, no, it was a great... it's a great induction to come into a massive change to the category, and nothing like jumping in the deep end and learning how to swim pretty quickly.
How much carried over from the AFL world to what is often a unique game in motor racing?
Elite sport is elite sport. You know, it's about performance at the end of the day. It's all about the W's. We probably didn't have a great year on the track, but to learn, to continue to overcome obstacles along the way was a real challenge. I think our group showed a lot of resilience and a lot of persistence to keep fighting all the way through to the end.
I mean, Rusty touched on what a steep learning curve it was, and it wasn't just for yourself, but you've got, Brett Ralph as the majority owner. He's been learning this on the fly as well. How's that journey been, sort of sharing that with Brett, trying to get a handle on this sport at a time that was so politically charged and all that sort of stuff as well?
Yeah, look, it was a real challenge. I think Brett's been involved in a number of sports as a sort of well publicised. So to sort of step into the motorsport world was completely different. It was a new set of challenges. I think for both of us. We would quite often chuckle about our backgrounds, and now all of a sudden we're sort of in charge of guiding an iconic brand in the motorsport world. So look, we've enjoyed it. We've I guess just really flourished on every opportunity and challenge that's been presented in front of us. Brett's a straight shooter, and to be able to have the backing of someone like Doc, Ryan Story, to be able to help us in that technical part, and to not only that but to work with Dick on a day-to-day basis. He's still in, he still works the floor, he still checks in on everyone. So I think the overall synergy's been great.
Is there something that surprised you about motor racing in the short time you've been involved? Perhaps what the drivers are like as athletes compared to footy players and that sort of stuff?
I do think that our sport doesn't see itself as necessarily elite sport. I think, and it is in that entertainment, network. It does compete a lot of other entertainment issues or industries across the country. But yeah, the drivers are elite. They recover. Their food requirements are pretty important. Their dietary, the decisions that they make, under pressure in a car in a split second is unbelievable. And I think the detail for me is at a whole new level to AFL. The marginal gains that engineers, mechanics, drivers are looking for lap after lap after lap is intense. Really intense.
Which game's more politically charged and which is therefore more draining?
Well, I'd say supercars.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's it's an interesting question, Rusty, because I've thought about it a lot. The key difference, I think, I've moved from a not-for-profit into a privately owned sector, and I think that brings with it a lot of other intricacies, budgets, profit, winning. There's more probably moving parts, and there's more stakeholders, I think, in supercars, from the OEMs to supercars themselves to privately owned teams, all our sponsors across the network that are heavily invested in our sport. So, yeah, it's a big sport. It's a really big sport.
Probably something we haven't talked about so far, and I know the boys will want to get into this as well, that in your role with Dick Johnson Racing, it wasn't just the team, Anton and Will and 2023. It was Gen 3 cars, what Dick Johnson Racing were doing together with Ford, with the introduction of that car. I mean, we can't... it was a massive undertaking for you guys, wasn't it?
Huge to, as I said, change the categories, the homologation team, and then, for good measure, we threw in a wild card, as well, our first time ever. And our staff did an amazing job to get it to that level that we did. So, yeah, there were a lot of moving parts this year, let alone changing the car. As you said, homologation team, extra testing, the parity triggers that came, our responsibility, I think, in the category to go and investigate and research and put something that, hopefully would get the four teams back up into a competitive range. there was a lot of work behind the scenes that went into it.
You talk about that work. You guys did slip from second to fifth in the teams championship this year. Was it simply, were you just overstretched having to be the homologation team at a time of such upheaval in supercars?
I think that's too easy, Daniel. I think there's something in it, but I think it's too easy to just say, look, we sort of put all the blame, if you like, into that area. I think the understanding that, there's extra work, you take that on as a responsibility. The homologation team, we probably just didn't execute as well as we needed to, in a lot of regards. I think you have a look at the back end of the year, we were moving in the right direction, and then, for the last couple of rounds, there were a couple of other Ford teams that actually did it better. And that's our challenge, is to review where we are, how do we improve. What we've learnt, I think, from the year is going to be really important as to how we then make some changes to move forward in what that actually looks like. So, look, I think it's processes, systems and people. I think they're the three things for me from an administration that you assess. And we've started that process.
Sorry. Benny Croak, obviously the team principal at DJR, mentioned that pre-season for 2023 was actually quite trouble from a technical perspective. Some gremlins with the cars that seemed to really set you back until you got the mid-season test day. How important is this off-season going to be, particularly because the cars are going to a wind tunnel? You may have to learn a package again. Yeah,
no doubt. I think they'll come back in different shape than they've gone. I think that's nearly a given. Yeah, so the pre-season, if you like, becomes really important. The understanding of what we've learnt in order to put into our testing going forward, and to have some cleaner days earlier in the pre-season, I think become crucially important for the direction that you want to set, and the tone, I think, of the year that you want to set for the rest of the year.
I know you didn't want to use the homologation team thing as an excuse for the fact that it wasn't the best year in DJR's history, but are you looking forward to, once the wind tunnel stuff is done, hopefully we've put all the other stuff to bed, to being able to just focus on car performance next season?
Yeah. For me, I think for the whole category, it's great. Yeah. Like, to be able to get over there and find out what is actually going on. I think it's fantastic that Supercars have been able to get it, regardless of whether or not we think it should have happened early or not, is irrelevant now.
To commit to that step.
It's committed, and it's great, and hats off to them for actually, first time ever for us as a category that we've gone there to really find out what's going on about it. Look, you would like to think that it becomes a little bit more stable and consistent next year. Yeah. That would be great, that everybody doesn't have the angst of, the parity discussion, and we can just go racing. Yep. That would be great. And I think our fans would love that as well, to be able to get back to that point of turning up to any round with any team having an opportunity to win, I think would be great.
But even just for yourselves, when you go testing mid-season, you can actually just go testing instead of having to bolt 3 different widths of rear wing on the car.
That's probably true, to have your 3D printer going over flat out for 48 hours to get some bits to take to an extra hour that you want to carve off. I know we did that with the wild card. We had to carve out a bit of time for some extra bits. But look, you do what you do, right? As a homologation team, that's what we do. And in order to sort of make our side of the category better, that's what you do.
I'm glad you brought up the wild card there. Can we talk Kai Allen for a moment? It's great to see the Ryan Woods, the Kai Allens of the world, hugely impressive guys in Super 2 getting that opportunity. Report card on him for the 23 year, and just the decision, I guess, to invest in the future. Really.
Massive tick. I think he's ticked all the boxes, I think, internally for us that we were looking at. Before I got there, Rusty, Benny Croak had him in a evaluation day, so Benny was really impressed with him. We spoke to him at detail at the beginning of this year. I guess it was like a full interview, more so than anything, around him as an individual, a bit more of his background, what his aims and aspirations were. And I think what we looked at overall was that we needed some succession planning internally for our organisation. And that didn't just include talent in the car. I mean, that also allowed Ed Williams to come off as the data engineer from 17 to race engineer. We were able to put some of our younger staff into that car as well. But look, for us, it was about Kai getting experience, getting his backside in the seat, getting around the mountain safely. He showed some reasonable speed in the times that he was there. I think he had a great partner in Simona. She did a fantastic job. They brought the car back clean. It was a great experience, and I think he's a rising talent. There's no doubt about that.
I know, DJR doesn't like to talk about contracts, but is there an agreement with Kai going forward? Is he part of your future plans?
Yeah, we were in that discussion at the moment about what that looks like for him, what that looks like for us going forward. It'd be silly for us to not have invested in him and us in that wild card without having some aspiration of where that's going to look like going forward. What it looks like in the next 12 months to 2, 3, 4 years, we're probably still in those early points of discussion, but we'd like to think that there's some connection and some connectivity that we can work with Kai over the coming future for sure.
Is that where you start to see some parallels with what you've done in the football world when you actually see a young driver? Because obviously Anton and Will already established part of the team, but being able to actually develop young talent, do you see some parallels to what you've done in the past there?
Definitely. I think after we sort of made the decision about, yes, we wanted to do a wild card, I sort of explained to the staff how it sort of operated, I guess, at AFL and the investment that you actually make in talent when you draft them coming through. So you've got a range of list managers, recruiters, salaries that come in when you bring young guys through, and you're probably investing the best part between $1 to $2 million, in those young guys coming through. And it generally takes you probably 2 to 3 years now to see whether or not you've got some growth and you've got the right ones and they learn enough, and the development coaches that they then put them into. So then when we decided, we sort of said, well, look, if we invested, let's just say between $500,000 and $700,000 in a wildcard entry with staff, partners exposure, driver talent, that's the same. For us as an internal, once we looked at that and said, well, this is how we need to do development and grow development. If we don't do it ourselves, well, you go the other path and you just handpick as you get a better talent, you just start to bring it in. But we decided that we wanted to have a go at trying to grow some of our own talent at a younger level internally.
Hypothetically, if you can rubber stamp that and keep him as a part of the fold and so on, clearly that's the intent in a succession plan. What things would you be looking for from him in 2024? What would you be wanting him to do?
I think improvement. Like, you want to continue to see him grow. You want to see, like we'd like to see him win the Super 2 championship again, at a greater level. Try to get back to that stage where he's the dominant driver in that category. They're the things that I think you see. For me, talent goes through in 4 stages. It comes through developing, emerging, established, and consolidated. So he's very much in that early phase of development. And with development, you have those peaks and troughs. They bounce up and they sort of fall over. And I think it's about what they learn, Rusty, going forward in order to continue to be challenged to move forward. That's the key thing, I reckon, is for him to continue to find that edge of how far he can push it, both at Supercars level and Super 2.
How have you sort of found personally, obviously you come from footy, you're not, I think you had an interest in motorsport, but it's not like you've grown up thinking about race cars your whole life. Have you found that you've sort of developed a bit of a general like and passion for the sport this year?
I think your passion just grows. I mean, being able to get to the track and be in the garage a couple of times, you think, crikey, it's actually like I'm here. It's all happening around you, and it's I remember growing up in Tassie as a kid watching, the Hardy Frodo. All the way back, watching DJ and Moffat and Brock and all those Bondi and all those guys coming through, to then the transition to the next lot. So to now sort of, I don't know, pinch myself every now and then as a second passion, to be able to be in it and actually be part of it is, it's been a bit surreal at times, I must admit.
You've still got a link to AFL through your son, John, who plays for Collingwood. How is it sort of combining 2 streams of professional sport at the same time and then having that professional involvement and the personal involvement? What's that like?
It's been good. I've lost one stressor and created another. So it's been great to be able to, just as a parent, just to go to the footy and just watch him and not have to, I guess, watch the game at a different point. What strategy are they running? What's the midfield doing? What are the stoppage structures? So, to enjoy that side of, as parents for Sarah and I and our other children, to see, John's growth has been it's been pretty inspiring. He's done a great job.
When you look back on 2023 as a whole, right, there's been stresses and strains around the new car, parity and so on, fans wanting things to hopefully get over the line in time for Bathurst and the like. When you look back on it broadly, dealing with supercars, trying to get things over the line, how do you feel about the year that was, coping with that?
What I've loved the passion that comes out in our sport. The absolute rusted on fans that we have. We rang a lot of them throughout the year. They turn up, each and every round. They're cheering on regardless of where we are. The passion of our partners and our sponsors that have been so iconic, invested in us for a long period of time. The passion of supercars to change categories. Like, I've really loved, and that passion has really grown for me this year in understanding what this sport is about. And that's what I'm looking forward to is continuing to ignite and learn from what our experiences have been this year, to re-engage that passion of our fans and our partners next year to go racing and get on that podium.
There's still another big change coming for DJR next year. You're taking over the Ford engine supply from Herod. Can you tell us, firstly, why that's come about and how is that going to work?
Well, I think there was an opportunity that presented. Ryan Story had, with Steve Amos, had bought the shop, and then obviously Rob had bought it. So there was an opportunity that I think presented for us as a group to look at the engine shop as an ongoing component of the homologation team. We feel like we've got the expertise to be able to continue to deliver Ford engines to the category. And look, when that opportunity came, we decided to explore it, and now we've invested in purchasing the shop. We've probably got a little bit of work to do, I think, in resourcing where that looks. There's a couple of head count there, and we feel like we probably need to invest in a little bit more resources in that regard. I mean, Rob did a terrific job to this point. The way the Ford teams finished at the end of the year, the engines were pretty reliable. We probably had some help from a bit more downforce at the end. But, it's an exciting opportunity that we've decided to take on board. We need to make sure that it stays independent. There's no doubt that we feel like we need to put an engine manager, shop manager in place to keep that independent so that the teams understand that there's no advantage for us in that, but it's about the growth of that Ford engine for the category.
So I guess because that was one of the concerns that was raised among other Ford teams, that DJR will have access to their engine data as the builder. You're saying that's going to be quarantined from DJR, the race team? Always has been.
The data is independently held with Supercars. Craig has all of that, and Adrian, to this point, has had all of that information. The engine shop under Herod's has not had that availability of data, and that will maintain. So we'll have contracts with teams, and that understanding will be clear, and an agreement with Supercars that is the way that it needs to happen. Same as the pool, the engine pool. All the engines are tested. They're then sent to Craig Haystead, who tests them. They get sealed, and then the pool's allocated from there. So that will remain at arm's distance for sure.
You mentioned Adrian. There's he's the general manager of Motorsport now, Tim Edwards. You, I'm guessing, have worked closely with him in your parity struggle advocating this year. He's gone from Tickford. He's now at Supercars. What are you expecting? What do you think of that appointment?
I think it's great. I can only sort of talk back to my experiences when you have people from sort of team land that go into head office. I think it can only help the understanding at head office into the intricacies that go on at team land. I think Tim will bring a whole new lens over the discussions that I think he's been privy to through this year. I've got no doubt that he'll be independent, in his assessment of where decisions have to be made. And I think it's a great appointment. Guy with great experience that's not lost to the sport is fantastic. We had some really open and honest discussions through the year. He's a straight shooter, Tim. He's a good thinker around the sport. I think it'll only, excel our growth, I think, of the sport going forward.
Going to be a little bit weird letting a bloke who was formerly a rival into the garage, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we always used to talk at the back.
Did you?
Like, we have to keep your distance.
You've been terrific in this conversation, really, really candid, which we thank you for. Looking ahead to 2024, you're a goal-orientated person.
Yep.
What is the target here for you? What will be the thing that you want at the end of 24 as being, we must achieve that?
Well, team championship, driver championship, they're the two, aspirations to get ourselves back into. And look, you give yourself that best chance by being regularly around the mark on a consistent basis. It's the stability, it's the consistency of being able to deliver performance on a regular basis, race in, race out, that will be our challenge, and our task will be to understand where things could have improved this year, go to work on that and deliver better excellence internally to make sure that our fans turn up with an understanding and an expectation that we can win races.
Cool. Can we finish then with, it's as we record here, it's hard to know what the outcome of the testing in America will be. From what you're seeing, are you confident this will give us a scenario going into 2024 where we will have a better, perhaps more level playing field for fans regularly at every round?
Yeah, that's definitely the plan. I haven't been privy to too much of the technical aspects, but the team that have gone from both sides, both the homologation teams, the aerodynamicists group that have now been implemented, that are running it, the group that's involved at Windshear. I'm extremely confident that this is a really good opportunity to get parity at a brand new level.
Awesome. I know the fans will have enjoyed this conversation. All the very best for 2024.
Pleasure.
And thank you very much for coming into the studio today. That is a great edition of the KTM Summer Grill. We hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure you check back in on the website, speedcafe.com, tomorrow morning to see who our next guest in the studio is.
You could be a winner each episode of the Summer Grill. KTM are giving you the chance to win a bar stool, a mug, and this race-inspired clock as well. So there's more good reasons to tune in and hear from some of the stars of world motorsport here as a part of the KTM Summer Grill. All you got to do is click on the link below, fill in your details, and you could be in the running to win.